so that Mia can listen later. And I'm going to share my screen quickly, like we've been doing, just sort of remind you the bits we're talking about today and that we'll focus on today. And this is for me coming a really nice exploration of going into some of the details of this work. So we're going to focus on the laterals today. Actually, I'll keep you guys down here. And so the primary intention of lateral stretching is, of course, like muscularly to sort of lengthen and strengthen these muscles on one side of the body at a time. This image on the right is sort of the gross superficial muscles on the side that get activated as we just lean the spine from one side to another. There's deeper muscles as well, but you can sort of see here, it's basically from the hip all the way to the shoulder and the muscles all around the shoulders that get lengthened and really worked here. But some of the interesting work some of the interesting parts of laterals that I find really useful are kind of the deeper impacts. So this image here of the pelvis from the front with all the musculature, we used this before in sort of the back bending aspects, but you can see these deep, like the iliopsoas, the deep musculature that connects for our spine, basically down through the pelvis into the leg. So really how we kind of lift and connect the leg to the pelvis here. You can imagine if the pelvis is kept fixed and we just tilt to one side, these little muscles that are connected to the leg begin to lengthen as the spine tilts over to one side. And there's even a variation of lateral, well, in the classification of the system that I study, there's a group of lateral postures that have to do with also lengthening and working the muscles that move from the pelvis down to the leg. So the sort of opening the leg out to the side. In the classification system that I use, we're calling those laterals. So yes, Lily. Yes, go ahead. You have another parent. Go talk to him. Okay. My children forget there's two of us here. So we'll do little examples of these different kinds of lateral. So the main kind is sort of what we think of as a lateral bend, which is bending over the torso to the side. But because this is really connected with the pelvis, we'll get into like some variations of moving the leg to the side. And then the secondary focus is the shoulder joint, and the hip girdle. So all of these directions of motion so far, the primary focus is kind of the core of the body. And then we get some things happening in the shoulders and the pelvis. The two parts that I often focus a lot when I bring laterals into our regular practice is the connection between the shoulder and the head. So all these beautiful small musculatures of the neck, because the ability to go and look up or to turn the head is really a function. I love everybody's doing what I'm doing now, like, yeah, just moving the head a little bit from one side, because in this posture we have the nice woman stretching, she has her arm up, but if you take the arm down, you create a different sensation here. And you can just by changing the position of the head, looking down or looking up, you create some nice awakening, awareness, stretching and strengthening of the side of the neck as well. And some traditions don't focus much on head position, but I often ask people to notice how your head feels, change the position of the head, and notice if that makes a different impact, maybe that's more useful for you. So, when we do laterals, if we look up or look down, that's one way, but as we play with the head a little bit, we might find, it's actually more useful for me to be looking down as I lean to the side. It gives me a different impact. So we'll continue to play with that. And for me, something that, so a lot of this kind of the breakdown of this comes really from this book, Yoga for Wellness. So this is like Gary and Mirka's foundational book. Lotte has gone through this like chapter by chapter with Mirka years ago when we first met her. So this is kind of the categorization is sort of coming from Gary and Mirka, and then I'm kind of throwing in some of my own observations and works after the past couple years working with this. And one thing that I think is important to add to some of this breakdown is when we do laterals, particularly standing laterals, and we keep the feet in this idea of samastiti, so equal balance in the feet, it creates a lot of work for the ankles and the feet themselves to keep the feet steady, because often the feet will want to turn. There's sort of an asymmetric lengthening or pulling sort of on the leg and on the feet in these standing positions. So as I worked a lot with standing postures, I find that laterals, particularly with the feet wide apart, is a great way to start to support the arch, maintaining the arch of the foot, and also strengthening the ankle joints as well, to help me keep more balance and less injury on my ankles with time. So that's sort of the big picture of laterals. But what I saw this great quote this week that I wanted to bring in as we talk about laterals and twists. So first we talked about forward folds, then back bends, and now we're talking about these asymmetric movements. And so we're sort of moving from the center line. And this quote sort of captures a detail we have to remember. So every exercise is a low back exercise if you do it wrong enough. So a lot of people who come to me with a lot of low back tension or pain, often the way they have learned to move habitually uses these wonderfully strong big muscles of the back all the time. So to achieve every movement, it's contracting the low back, which leads to some dysfunction in how the muscles move together. So as we focus on lateral bending today, one thing to continue to come back to be aware of is this posture a back bend? One of the ways that we avoid stretching the side of the body is to basically create a back bend or a forward fold instead of a lateral stretch. And in this class, we take a lot of, I'm going to stop sharing here because that's all I'm going to share today with this thing. So in this class, because you guys have worked in this way for a long time, it's fine not to focus too much on create a certain form. But if you sort of work with the externals a bit more and try to create a certain form or a certain shape with the body, then sometimes we kind of lose that main focus. So I'm just gonna kind of remind you again and again, I'm doing a little bit in front of you, but the goal is not to look like me. It's to feel the asymmetric lengthening of the lateral bends. Okay. Any questions, thoughts, or comments from anybody?
I remember when you taught me that I had to keep stable in my pelvis and don't have this Donald Duck. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do laterals because it hurts so much in the
I
low
remember,
back.
yes.
But
Yeah.
when you taught me to, hold it
Yeah.
together, then I could do the laterals.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we're using tools that we've built upon. And, with the first session, the forward folds, this pivot point, that pivot point is kind of the reminder to keep it, just to be aware. And we don't want to overdo it. We don't want to really tuck down, but that's that awareness that there's so much freedom here that okay, wait, what's going on here? And that helps us kind of keep
That
coming back to
changed everything
yeah,
for me.
yeah, same, me too. That awareness. And so we're going to try to come to that awareness and for me, sometimes when I'm not focused or tired in my body, things like that, I lose it a little bit. And for people like you and me, Lotta, where there's some instability in the iliosacral joint, we want to come at lateral bends very carefully, because we can get a little bit of too much stress there. So and next week with the twists, we're gonna take some extra care. So we're creating a little bit of shear stress in the iliosacral joints when we move laterally or when we twist. And so if we have not so much stability there, we want to proceed with caution. And so we'll kind of, so today I do a different variations which are more or less shear stress on the iliosacral joint. Ideally, we want to have things stable enough that we can do all the different variations, but we do them with great care. Like you figured out with the low back, we can also figure out what our limits are in terms of stability of the iliosacral joint. Okay. All right, then let me change cameras here, and we're going to begin sitting as we always do, and then we'll move to the floor. So I'll just keep the camera here, and then there we go, so I can see you all better. Good. And today, if you don't have like something that you can use like a strap, I have a yoga strap here, something like a towel or a sock, something, because we might do something, where we have sort of something on the foot and stretching out or something like that. Possibly, we'll see. I'll see how it feels. So before we begin, just make sure you have something like that nearby. Perfect. And then once you find your equipment, just begin to center yourself a bit. Come into your breath and start to notice what arises as you just bring your attention within. Invite your breath to become a little deeper. If you'd like, you can join me for opening invocation of Sahana. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Punaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vati Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Take a couple more breaths. Emphasize a little bit more, if you can, the lifting of the rib cage as you inhale, expanding of the rib cage as you inhale. We're going to use the strength of those intercostal muscles to emphasize the lateral bending a little more in some of these postures. And then when you feel ready, let's come towards the floor. We're going to begin lying on the back today. The chair over here. So we'll just begin by lying on the back and first just feeling the sacrum. So like we do when we're standing on the wall, pressing the sacrum towards the floor. Take a few breaths and see if you can comfortably bring your sacrum close to the floor. Notice the area of sort of the iliosacral joint. Maybe let the knees rock a little bit side to side. Good. So just sort of doing a check-in with the low back, the sacrum, and maybe a little bit here rocking the sacrum. So imagine the sacrum is like a clock and the 12 is pointed towards your heart. The 6 is towards the tailbone, 3 and 9 on either side. And just see if you can roll back and forth between 6 and 12, or 3 and 9. And maybe just a little circle there. So for me, this is just a safety check, like seeing if the iliosacral joint is a little bit dysfunctional or not. Some of the ways you can feel this is sometimes some asymmetry as you're lying in this position, or sometimes discomfort as the joint is pressing towards the floor with the weight of the pelvis on it. So just notice that. And if there's some dysfunction there, just be aware of that as we're moving today, that we don't want to pull ourselves deeply into a lateral bend when there's some dysfunction in this joint, because it's very likely to create more dysfunction. And with time, laterals can actually support bringing some dysfunction back. Some adjustments can happen there, but we want to try to find ourselves in a neutral place before we develop in that way. And then eventually just see if you can stretch one leg out and pull the other knee towards you. So pulling the knee towards the chest, towards the shoulder. You might feel the sensation of stretching in the front side of the hip here. So these are some of the deeper muscles from the leg connecting up through the pelvis. And for some of you, it might be more awareness of the low back when we do this, or even the hip. So just bring one leg into one side and then switch sides, stretch the other leg out, and gently bring the opposite knee towards you now. Take a few breaths. Good. Just notice left and right side. And then we're going to bring both feet to the floor, soles on the floor, knees up, a little bit of Dvipada Pitta. We're going to either sweep the arms out to the side if you have space, or just bring the hands over the head if there's no space next to you. And exhale, slowly bring the arms next to the body as you lower the spine to the floor. Good. So sweep or lift the arms next to the head, lift the hips up, lower the spine slowly down as you swipe the arms or lower the arms. Just do 2 more times like that. And after 2 times, you're just going to roll onto one side, and we're going to come on to the hands and knees, or the forearms and the knees, depending on how your hands feel with the body weight. So if it doesn't feel good to put the hands on the floor with the weight of the body, just with the elbows on the floor, hands down. Take a breath in, and as you exhale, slide the hips back towards the feet, the head down, and inhale up. So whether the arms are straight or you're balancing on the forearms, arch the back as you come up and around the back as you come down. Again, just a few breaths. Feel your back lower. Good. And come up. And Julia, I'm going to give you one thing to feel. So as you move back, the first thing you do is drop the head and shoulders and then slide back. So just try that little difference. So that first thing, yeah, come back and then come all the way up. And what that does is it allows us just from the beginning of the movement to relax the shoulders and the neck and transfers the work a little bit more to the low back. Good. And then from here, wherever your hands are, we're going to come into a side stretching version of this. So we're going to take one hand in front of the other, whether the forearms are down or the arms are straight, can do it the same way. And now you're just going to let the hips move back towards the feet. So very likely you're not going to go all the way back towards the feet. So hands are in a line and you're just going to move back and start to notice what you feel. Take a few breaths there. The idea is to make one side a little bit longer. Good. Just stay in that position. Breathing. Notice where you might feel some restriction or tightness or sensation of stretching. And just keep breathing. And then eventually we'll come to the second side. So take the other hand. So now my right hand is in front of my left hand and I'm moving back. And the heart stays facing the floor. So we're not yet opening the heart up towards the ceiling. Heart is still facing the floor. The hip is moving back. And now we're just lengthening along this one side. Taking a couple breaths, noticing where there's a feeling of tightness or restriction. The hips don't need to be low. They can be as high as they need to be here. All right, then come back to the center. And then we're going to go back to the first side. So now you're going to turn your body in the opposite way, basically. You're going to take one hand, bring the shoulder to the floor, and this upper arm is going to try to reach over the head, if that's possible for you. So see if that's possible. Good. Excellent. Good adaptation, Julia. Good, Lota. So just looking for some lengthening through the shoulder or maybe through the hip. So for some of us, there's a lot happening in the hip, the connection from the hip to the torso. For some of us, a little more here in the shoulder. Breathing. And then we're going to rotate to the other side. Again, just noticing here how the body feels on this side. So often one side is different than the other in our bodies. So other shoulder comes down. So just notice where you feel, whatever variation you're doing. There may be a lot of sensation in the areas that we've talked about, this lateral sort of area, or you may not be getting there in this posture. You may be feeling much more behind the shoulder that's on the floor, in the hips and knees. Just breathing. Good. And then come back to the center. And in whatever graceful way works for you, we're going to come to standing. Good. And let's just feel the feet solidly on the floor, samastiti. And let's just say hello to our shoulders, neck here. Just a few breaths, arms up and down. Good. If you like, maybe begin to turn the head just a little bit. So kind of starting to wake up the neck and shoulders. Head to the center on inhale, head turns to the side on exhale. So laterals and twistings are very good friends that complement each other well. When we think about sequencing and preparation and compensation, laterals and twisting positions can prepare the body for the other. One can prepare for the other. And then we're just going to stay with the hands in the low back. And just very simply, let the head turn to one side. So keep the shoulders, keep the whole core of the body in the center, and just let the head turn. Bring the ear towards the shoulder on one side. Take a couple breaths. So looking forward initially. And then maybe gently turn the head so you're looking down towards the floor. Take a breath or two here. So no forcing. When we're working with the neck here, you allow yourself to be in the range of motion that's available to you. And at the end of that range of motion, just hold the head. And maybe for some of you, it's okay to turn the head towards the ceiling. You don't have to look up at the ceiling, but just turn in the direction, lift the chin a little bit to one side. And then come back to looking forward. Then slowly come to the center. Let's relax the arms before we do the second side. Just notice what you feel. Even all the way to the legs, and just doing that, I noticed my head was to the left, my right leg was doing something I wasn't quite aware of. So just even notice the feet and the legs as you do this. So if you're ready, we'll take the other side. And first, just let the head tilt down. And since it's the second side, just with an awareness of the first experience on the other side, how it might be different or the same. Seeing our own image in these cameras can be helpful sometimes with these, so we can see that one side looks completely different than the other, feels maybe quite different. After a few breaths, we'll turn the head down if that's okay. So very gently and slowly, staying comfortably within your normal range of motion. Samastiti in both feet. Equal balance, strong legs. Maybe looking with the chin turned up just a bit. Then face forward again before you lift up to the center. And pause. Shake the arms out a little bit here. And then we'll just sort of extend that simple motion. We'll go back to the first side. And this time we'll take the arms up. And then we're just going to tilt the whole body down to one side and let the head just simply come down, follow the direction of the rest of the spine. The pelvis is nice and centered, samastiti on both feet, so you're not putting too much weight on the leg below where your head is now. Take a few breaths, imagining now breathing in and really activating the intercostal muscles on the open side. So we'll call this the open side, and we'll call this the closed side. You imagine it's almost like you can inhale on one side more than the other side. So it's more about reaching up than coming down too far and reaching over. Then we'll come up, release the arm, pause a moment. Good. And then the other side, arms up. And tilt down. Again, samastiti, both feet and the pelvis are pretty stable. Just leaning over and breathing into the open side. So here, instead of using the position of the body to create a lengthening, a deeper lengthening, we're coming into a deeper breath while we hold a simpler posture. As Lotta reminded us nicely here, if it feels like a back bend, pull it together, as Lotta said here. Just activate your point here in the low belly like we did in the forward folds. Let the low back be more neutral, not too overarched. Then after a few breaths, we'll come up, shake it out. Good. And let's just do a nice compensation. So we want to be generous with forward folds. When we're doing a lot of laterals, and especially as we're learning to control this area better or practicing controlling this area better, just slide the hands down, either hands to the knees or all the way down towards the floor, the belly against the legs. Let the spine lengthen in a forward position. And then slowly, as you feel ready, come all the way up. And now we're sort of prepare the body for a deeper lateral by coming in first to this warrior-like posture that we do. And so inhale, come up, one arm forward, or two arms if you like, but just think about lengthening through the front side here. And exhale, release. So inhale. Our friend from last week, this posture. Again, samastiti in both feet. And then let's stay in this posture, just maybe let's say 4 breaths here. Arms can be up or arms can be to the side. See what feels best for your shoulders, for your body. Think about lengthening here in the hips. So let this hip come down as feels right, but lift the heart up. Good. And then we're going to come down into the asymmetric forward folding position. So slide the hands down this leg, either keeping the hands on the ankles or resting the hands on the feet. Or if we need a little more stability, then the fingertips or the hands to the floor. Just feeling the back side of this front leg lengthening as the head comes towards the knee. Feet in samastiti, so nice arches in all the feet. The toes, you can lift the toes up if you kind of have a habit of pressing or gripping with the toes. And then after a few breaths, we'll slowly come up. Step the feet together and pause. Good. Just feel the body. And then we'll switch sides. So whichever leg is forward now goes back. Same idea. We want to kind of lengthen through this front side just a bit, preparing to do a bit of a deeper lateral. Exhaling out. Inhaling in. We have Tilda with us. Hi, Tilda. Babies, dogs, and cats are the best part of online yoga. Hi. And Lotte gets an assistant with her that helps guide her in her postures. Good. And then let's stay here in this posture. Again, arms can be up or arms can be out. This is also a great way to open the front side of the body, a nice variation. And if we want to focus on this kind of a lengthening, lifting, then the one arm or two arms is also a nice variation. So see what feels right for you today. Yeah, so this might be great for you with the arms up, even the palms up a little bit, just a little. Good. And then after a few breaths here, we can slide ourselves down. Stay just a few breaths. Samastiti, both feet. And then as you feel ready, we'll slowly come back to standing. Feel the body, pause. So we're going to do a little sequence of deeper lateral bending. But I want to do a variation of the legs that can be a bit more gentle for the pelvis. It's a little more work because your quads are going to be more involved. So we're going to kind of keep this almost like a warrior two leg position. And so we'll do arms up, externally rotate the shoulders, hands can be down. So like Lotte mentioned, so we're going to find our core here. So the iliacus, these little hip bones that stick out, they're both facing forward in front of you, and they stay facing forward even as we tip down to the side. So one way to avoid lengthening here is to rotate. So often we'll see people in my classes rotating so they can go deeper into this posture. We're not concerned with deep right now. We want to focus on lengthening this side of the body. This back foot, this is the work I talked about with the feet and the ankles. So the tendency is that we curve the weight towards the ball of the big toe side of the foot. So the big toe side, the arch collapses. So try to find some astiti there. We have to push the outside edge of the foot down. Maybe lift the toes up so you can feel a little more balanced. And then we're going to keep this bent. And let's just start by taking the hand resting here or the elbow for Sura to protect your wrists here. So we'll bend this knee nice and deep. You might be feeling a nice deep stretch on the inner thigh here. That's okay. And then we're going to do a simple movement. We're going to inhale, reach, 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 and exhale. We're going to take the hand towards the hip, palm of the hand up, and we're going to look down. And then inhale, look forward, reach over. Exhale, look down. Inhale, reach over. Exhale, down. One more time. And we're going to stand up for a moment. Let's take the feet together a moment just to give a little break. You know what? We'll sequence this so we actually go back and forth a few times since we're putting a little weight on this leg. So let's do the same thing on the second side. So we're going to do this like warrior two position with the legs. We're going to keep the knee nice and bent. Come into the posture, samastiti in both feet, both bones of the pelvis here, pointing forward, arms out. Activate the pivot point, that lower point we did in the forward fold. Exhale down, hand to the knee or elbow to the knee. Good. Inhale, arm over. Exhale, look down. Inhale over. Exhale down. Inhale over. Exhale down. Make sure you're not feeling tightening in the low back here. If it's feeling too tight in the low back, come up a little higher. And then we'll come up, feet together, pause. Okay. And this time we're going to stay in the side stretch. So we're going to come back to the first side, bend the knee, keep the pelvis pointing forward, samastiti both feet. Then we come down, hand down, elbow down. So you can choose here. We can stay in this lateral. Let's maybe stay here for about 3 breaths, and then we're going to move the arm to the other position and stay about 3 breaths. So when we're here reaching, imagine you're like from the foot that's on the floor all the way to the fingertips. One long line, and then reaching the rib cage up, so you're creating like a bow with the body. Good. And then we'll do 3 breaths with the hand back towards the hip, palm of the hand open up towards the ceiling, looking down. Feet in samastiti, strong legs. After 3 breaths, we'll stand up, step the feet together. Good. Pause. If at any point when we do this little pause, you're feeling tightness in the back, feel free to take a nice counter pose down to the floor. If you're feeling pretty relaxed in the back, you don't need to, so it's up to you. I have one student who would come to my classes here in Regensburg, and she's blind, so she can't see what the other people are doing. And she was great, because once I told her to take a counter pose between postures, she did, and she would remind me to take counter poses. So because she had an easier time just feeling the sensations in her body and not looking at what other people are doing. Now we're going to switch sides back to the second side. We're going to stay in the posture. Hand on the knee or elbow on the knee, leg nice and bent. Just about 3 breaths, reaching, creating a nice bow. You can get a similar effect by going deeper, but I find that if we stay up a little higher, it's a little easier to control sort of the midsection here. And of course, as we practice, we can come all the way to putting the hand on the floor in this position. After 3 breaths, we can take the hand down, look towards the floor. Come up, step the feet together, pause. So notice what you're feeling as we do this. There's a lot going on here as well because of the way the legs are positioned. Okay. So Julia, just be gentle and supportive as we do this. We'll do one more variation if you're up for it with the legs in this position, and then we'll do some other things. So we're going to come back once more to the first side, and we're going to go from this extended angle version of the posture to sort of the typical Utthita Trikonasana. So often when we do a side stretch in here, we sort of have the leg a little more straight. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into the posture with the leg bent, and the arm can be wherever you like it to be, over the head, up in the air, or back here. But what I want you to do is just feel now what happens to the legs and the pelvis as you straighten this leg. So just a couple breaths here. Nice deep squat on one side. Hypermobile people, try not to hyperextend the leg, just let it straighten and then bend. If you like, you can stay in this Utthita Trikonasana version of the posture. You can come closer to the floor if you like. So I know a lot of you are bendy people, but as you come closer to the floor, don't lose the orientation of the pelvis. So the pelvis stays like this no matter how far you come down. And then the arm that's overhead gives you more lengthening through the torso. Okay? When you complete that first side, pause here. So we're kind of playing here, finding our range of motion in Utthita Trikonasana, and also the extended angle version, which is the knee bend. We'll come in, the hand down, so pelvis aligned, arm can be up or over, and just a few breaths here. Straighten and bend. And don't let this shift. Good. Beautiful. Good. After a few repetitions, feet together. Pause. Good.
Tammy,
Yes.
am I doing something wrong because my right knee hurts when we do that warrior like
When the knee's bent, on the bent side or the other side? So is this your right knee or is this your right knee?
the back?
This one.
Yes.
So
But
so if you
when I get it to hurt, then it hurts either, but it started
either.
in that position.
Okay, so that's a really common thing that can happen. So we want to play with the position of this back foot. So it doesn't have to be completely out to the side. For you, it might be better to turn it a bit more so that it's in. So what we want to do is that we don't want the knee to be pressing in out of alignment with the ankle here.
Okay, so it's
Okay.
about rotation.
Exactly. So it's a relationship between the hip and the ankle. So I can't see your foot, but as you experiment, notice more turning in, which could be a way to protect, or for some people, it's actually turning out a little more that
Mm-hmm.
helps.
I know
So
that hip is more open than the other.
yeah, so find out. So the position of my back foot is relative to what's works for my hip and my ankle.
But
So
say that about the alignment once more.
so
You
if
said
this
something about the knee in the line of.
yeah, so if depending on what's happening to your so another thing is to keep the hip here. So if the hip is turning, you might be turning, it might create a little torque on the knee. So
Mm,
another thing is also to keep the hip, make sure the hip is out and pressing down on the outside edge of the foot.
okay. You know,
Okay,
something
so
happened to that leg all the way up to the hip when I fell and sprained my ankle because
oh yeah.
I have this clicking sound in my knee that I never had before. So it's
Ah,
almost like it was twisted all the way up,
yeah, very
like the
much. Yeah.
fascia or something. I don't know.
Yeah. The whole connective string.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so play with that. Please let us know what you find in the next week as you do your movements. What you find, because I have irritated, and I've seen many other people, particularly in this Warrior One version. It's often people often teach, bring both hips forward. This can create that situation in that back knee. So I find many people benefit from not forcing the hips forward, leaving the hips to push the weight back on that foot, and then just bring the chest forward. So it's more like a stretching through here than a back bend. So it becomes a little bit of a different. So find that. And also, of course, if you're hypermobile in the knees, this is a great opportunity to hyperextend the knee with that straight leg. So just be aware of that. If the knee is hyperextending, that can also be part of it. And find a foot position. Another way, like one of the variations of warrior, is to lift the heel.
Mm.
And this helps to assure that the knee is working. And so because what happens if there's some tightness here, or even like normal range of motion, most people can't put the heel down when they're coming into a warrior with the foot so far forward.
Mm.
So see what's happening in your
Mm-hmm.
lower leg that can help avoid the tweaking, the misalignment of the knee.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
mhm. Let's move down to the floor here. Okay. Yeah, and one of you, just so you know, Lotte, one of the most common injuries of yoga teachers is often that back leg that's that gets a bit tweaked in that. So that relationship, it's a lot of the foot position. I find is the most useful thing to focus on, but also see what's happening in the pelvis. All right, so we can either come into Chakravakasana if you're happy with hands and knees, or we do Vajrasana. This is the hands-free variation for Sura to make her wrists happy. We'll come down. So just a few times this little transition. So coming into the center, the forward fold is just, this really is a nice way to talk to the iliosacral joint, the erector spinae, so the line of muscles down the spine that help keep everything aligned. So forward fold is a little more neutral than the laterals as far as alignments of the joints through the spine and the pelvis. And then after a few rounds, just rest in a childlike posture if that's a comfortable posture for you. And if it's not a comfortable posture for you, come already onto the back. So lying on the back, we're going to all meet there eventually. And then when you're ready to move on, come on to lying on the back. I can't see everyone, so when Julia's ready, the rest of us will go. And Julia's wearing my favorite colors today, the green, blue sort of, we call it petrol over here in Germany. I don't know if that's what it's called anywhere else, but good. So again, coming back, feeling that iliosacral joint here. And we're just going to we're going to work one side and then the other. So keep one foot on the floor and then bend the knee and bring the other knee towards you. If you can, keep the hands to the side. We're just going to inhale, flex this foot, straighten the leg as much as you comfortably can, and exhale, bend that knee and bring the heel down. But keep the foot off the floor. So this stays, the hip flexor stays engaged. There you go. Inhale, flex. Exhale, bend the knee, but keep the thigh where it is. Beautiful. There you go. So just a few times here, lifting. And keep the leg up just a few breaths here. So this is just activating this whole front side of the leg all the way to the deep muscles, the connection between the leg and the pelvis that I mentioned at the beginning. Feel the back of the pelvis nice on as close to the floor as we can comfortably bring it. And then if you have your little strap kind of thing, or you can also do this. I'll show you what we're going to do. We're going to open the leg out to the side. So you can do it with the strap, or you can do it by bending the knee and bringing that knee out to the side. So for most normal people, the knee is not going to go to the floor. So no expectations there. If you'd like to sort of get the benefit of lengthening the leg, you can use the strap on the ball of the foot. And then this leg that's bent is sort of the anchor. So you want to try to guide this leg either straight or bent towards the floor. And at the same time, keep this side of the opposite hip close to the floor, so not letting yourself turn over. So these kinds of postures, and this leg, if you like, you can straighten it. For some of you, it might be more comfortable and easier for you to straighten it. Otherwise, you can keep it bent. So in the classification system, that the way that I learned to sort of organize postures, this is considered a variation of a lateral posture. And this is more about the hip and the pelvis and those deep muscles between the leg and the pelvis. I was thinking of Kent, and I was almost going to make you guys work with this one while standing on one foot, but I decided to be gentler. And Kent isn't here to suffer through it, so that's good. Good. So we're just going to stay in this posture for a few breaths. And as always, don't move so deeply into it that you have a really uncomfortable stretch. So I don't believe in the going into discomfort and staying there. That's for the nerve, that is counterintuitive to how I work with the nervous system. So find where your limit is and breathe there. You don't need to move beyond it. Okay. And then once you're ready, you can come back to the center. If you like, you can release both legs to the floor. Pause a moment. Good. And as you pause, just take a moment. Notice how you feel. And then we'll come to the other side. So we'll bend both knees again and begin by just taking the opposite knee towards you. And we'll just do the extension and the flexion. So inhale, extend the leg, flex the foot, and exhale, bend the knee. So first, just sort of seeing how the lengthening of the leg is, engaging all the musculature in the front of the leg. Then stay there for a few breaths, just using the muscles of your strength of your own body to keep the leg lifted, engaged, flexed. And then with the leg straight or bent, depending on how you want to work with it, you can use your strap and let the leg open towards the side. This back leg, the stabilizing leg can be bent or straight, whatever works best for your body. But just keep the hips, both butt cheeks on the floor, and let it open towards one side. Again, just noticing what you're feeling in the pelvis, the inner thighs, the hip. And as you feel ready, we'll come back to the center, release the leg down and pause. And then as you feel ready, just bend the knees again, feet to the floor. Just let the knees rock a little bit side to side. Again, feeling the iliosacral joint, the back of the pelvis on the floor here. So for me, when my SI joint gets a little bit out of whack, the taking my right leg out to the side makes a little adjustment in that joint, and it actually, because it's my right side, the right SI joint, that tends to slide a little bit on me, and that variation slides it back, and then it stabilizes. Good. And maybe just hug the knees in here, and then we'll do just a little bit of gentle twisting. So we're going to take the arms out wide. Exhale, let the knees come down to one side. Inhale to the center. Exhale to the other side. And maybe here, as you inhale and exhale, twist. Maybe let the head twist to one side, whichever side feels best for you. You don't have to twist away from the knees. Inhale, knees to the center, head to the center, and exhale, let your head twist. Just turn. I don't even say twist, just let it turn. I have one person I work with, he's very strong. And so if he tries to twist, I try not to say twist, because he can turn his head just using the strength of his muscles, even if it's tight and resisting. So we practice the concept of just turning into the natural range of motion. This turning and gentleness is lubricating the joint spaces without creating imbalances. Oh yeah, there was one more I wanted to do here on the floor. So let's bring the feet back to the floor. And this is the posture Lotta calls the holy banana, which I think is a great name. So you're going to lie down, the legs straight, Take your right leg over to the right side and take your left foot next to it. So both butt cheeks stay on the floor, hips stay where they are. Try not to let the low back arch too much. So if you try to force the legs over too much to do it, you want to keep the low back close to the floor. So bring the feet back closer to the center line if you need to. And then we're going to take the arm that's opposite from the side of the feet and raise it up over. You can slide your shoulders a little bit to the one side so you make yourself like a banana. But keep the back close to the floor. If that back hip wants to lift off, then just bring the hands and the feet closer to the center line. So this is a very effective side stretch, and it doesn't have to be a big position. Just come to breathing. So this allows us to use the floor and to use gravity here to keep the body aligned. If you want a little support, kind of keeping, without working too hard to keep the body flat on the floor, I find that take the inner leg and bend it and put the foot on the floor. That is a little bit better of an anchor for the hips and the pelvis to keep it where you want to be. So just staying here a few breaths. Low back stays close to the floor. And with the head, we're just going to say a few more breaths. With the head, you want to keep the nose pointed up towards the ceiling. But if you like, you can let the head sort of just move in the direction of the curve of the body here. So it's sort of what we did standing, but now gravity's not pulling the head down. So just a little bit of allowing the cervical spine to move in the lateral position as well. Good. And then after a nice long stay in the banana on one side, bring yourself back to the center line so shoulders and hips aligned again. Pause a moment. Notice what you feel. And then when you feel ready, we'll stay again a few minutes then on the other side. So we're going to move the feet to the other side of the line. The shoulders, the hips, the low back stays flat. If you like, you can bend this inside leg to keep your hips, pelvis from lifting. Nose stays pointed towards the ceiling, but the head can shift over a little bit, so you're getting a little bit of a lateral extension on one side of the neck as well. Staying here and breathing. That Om inside like an accordion. Inhale, expanding. Just about 3 more breaths like that. When you complete your last breaths, just come back to the center. Feel the body for a moment. And then one more time, we're going to bring the knees towards the chest in Uttanasana. So exhale, bringing the knees towards you. Inhale, let the knees move away. And then one last position, posture together before we rest. Feet back to the floor, ankles and knees touching. We'll just do a nice gentle inhale, let the knees open to the side. Exhale, slowly bring the knees together. And each time you do it, inhale all the way. Let the pelvic floor relax at the end of inhale. Exhale, pelvic floor comes towards the body. Activate the inner thighs, knees together. Good. And when you feel ready, if your body is ready to go into resting now, please make yourself comfortable for a few minutes. Make sure your feet and body stay warm. I'm going to rediscover my socks here because that would be nice. So come into your quiet space. And as you come to resting, just give yourself a few moments to notice the impacts of your effort. So just because this is a practice emphasizing lateral movement of the spine, it may not be the sides of your body that you're most aware of as you rest. So just notice where the effort manifested in your body this morning or this evening. Sometimes just the little variations on the neck can bring blood flow to the face. Or for many of us, there's a greater awareness of the impact of the pelvis, or even the legs, the feet, the knees, as Lotta had mentioned as well. So just notice what feels activated in your body. And then as you notice the activation, just slowly allow yourself to be awake and aware, but allow your awareness to follow the stillness of your body. Awake, my dear, awake, my dear. Be kind to your sleeping heart. Take it out into the vast fields of light and let it breathe. Let it breathe. Let it breathe. Awake, my dear, awake, my dear. Be kind to your sleeping heart. Take it out into the vast fields of light and let it breathe. Let it breathe. Let it breathe. Awake a while. It does not have to be forever. Right now. One step upon the sky's soft skirt would be enough. Awake a while. Just one true moment of love will last for days. Rest all your plans and tactics for knowing peace, for they are often just frozen spring flowers, far, so far from summer's divine gold. Awake, my dear. Be kind to your sleeping heart. Take it out into the vast fields of light and let it breathe. Say, love, give me back my wings. Lift me up nearer. Say to the sun and to the moon, to our dear friends, I'll take you up now, beloved, on that wonderful dance you promised. Awake, my dear, awake, my dear. Be kind to your sleeping heart. Take it out into the vast fields of light and let it breathe. Let it breathe. Let it breathe. So slowly come back to the present moment, reawaken your body, mind. Come back to sitting in your own time, in your own way. Take a moment just to feel the body, the energy. One part of this poem that really touches me today is this part that says, rest all your elaborate plans and tactics for knowing peace. So forget everything you think you're going to do to find peace. Like, forget all that. Just forget the effort, because they're just frozen buds of flowers so far from summer. So let go of your planning for peace and just be awake a moment, in this moment, instead of the dream. So it's inviting us to let go of the effort and the plans and the strategies and just be here for a moment. We'll get them back. The strategies are still there. They don't go anywhere, but just let them go. They're not ready to blossom yet. Just let them go for a moment. So may this one awakened moment be a source of peace for each of us and for the worlds that we touch each day. Lokaha samasta sukhino bhavantu. Thank you all for inspiring this gathering, for being here, for showing up. It's such a joy each week. Thank you. Mhm.